Here we go. And we're back.
We're
Mike, how
back.
you doing?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm doing well. I'm getting out of my Slack before you make a comment that it's too distracting. So I'm getting out of all my apps.
The
It's five
beeps.
o'clock somewhere.
You're popular. You're popular. You have so many Slack beeps coming across, and
I wish that were true.
all that
Um,
stuff.
no, well, the next thing we got to work on for it's 5 o'clock somewhere is my line sponsorships. This episode is sponsored by Whispering Angel, so thank you so much, Whispering Angel, for the shout out to Fullpath. We appreciate it. No, I'm kidding. But anyone who wants to sponsor us, please feel free. Today, it's been a while, so first of all, glad to be back. We're going to talk
Yeah.
today about the core of CDPs, which is audiences and audience segmentation, and how you can get super granular with your targeting by having A, your data consolidated, cleaned, but B, having the actual ability to filter and segment that data so that you can actually use it. Because if you don't use it, you lose it. So
That's right.
that's right. For those of you that missed our live launch, where Mike successfully jumped out of a plane.
It was
and
scary. It was scary. I've never thought I would
looked
jump out of
very
a plane.
scary. Yeah, so anyone who missed it, you should definitely watch it. We released a few different things. Today we're just going to talk about some things that we released. Again, one of the things I want to talk about is audiences and filters, just because I feel like it's such a big part of where the industry's going. We released a ton recently, and even like this week, last week, we've been getting more and more granular with how you can actually build audiences. Again, building those audiences so that you can send them off and actually activate them and show them messages and emails and SMS and ads, and get them into your showroom. So, Mike, do you want to talk about some of the recent filters
Yeah, I mean,
that
I
we've
think
added?
yeah, the filter stuff is it's actually it's really powerful, and it looks like on the product level, it oftentimes looks like minute in terms of like, hey, we just added this filter, but it's really powerful. And if you move back and took about, I think we talked about it a few times of like holistically of moving. What we've been having these conversations with dealer-ons is moving up funnel in terms of what customers are doing because, and we've said this before, historically when you're marketing to customers, you're marketing based off of like I guess static data, meaning what goes into the CRM and whatnot and what data you actually
Yeah,
get. But
good point.
once we resolve the customers, now we can be that much more granular into saying, hey, here's Ilana and she fits this profile. And to the dealership's side, they now have the ability to go through and craft those messages of kind of what we're calling our micro audiences. And those micro audiences give you the ability to be hyper specific to a very small subset audience based off of the intent and the filter, that we're building and the ones that we're putting into the hands of the dealerships. And some of those you can get really granular in terms of like electrification of a vehicle. We know that is a pain point for dealers. You can get into like residual amount in terms of like, the lease and the equity and stuff like that. So the granularity of which that you can now build these micro audiences is really powerful and also allows you to be that much more specific to user intent versus latent data that we get in the CRM.
Yeah, I would also say so. Great points. I would also say that what's where the industry is really going when it comes to Martech and the software that that dealers will be able to actually use is they'll be able to add these filters and get really granular with micro audiences, but they'll also be able to use data from different data sources for one audience. So it's not like you're taking your CRM data and saying, okay, like let me pop a list and anyone who missed an appointment in the last 2 weeks, let me bring them in. It's way more sophisticated because you have your CRM data, your DMS data, your website data. So now you can get granular and say, okay, I want RO data plus anyone who's actually bid on my site plus anyone with positive equity plus anyone who missed. I mean, you can take from all these different sources to create one audience,
Yeah.
which I think is gonna like dealers really need to feel good about the fact that they could start doing that because that's like a superpower in
Yeah.
MarTech. I mean, as a marketer, I would say I think it's a superpower.
Well, I think there's two things. One, in auto is that most websites, let's say you convert at 2.5%. That's, I mean, I'm not a math guy, but 98% of your consumers that aren't exposing their intent, meaning I need to raise my hand and say, hey, I'm interested in X car. As you look on the CDP side, now you can unveil a whole different kind of level to actually see what your users are doing. Also, like the marketing score, like the propensity to convert. You can see how active people are and use those micro audiences to then push a message to them to get them to convert. And or you can now move into more of the enablement side, is that if, let's say, I build a shopper score, or excuse me, an audience with a shopper score above 8.5, and I know they're looking at the 3 Series, and I send them an offer or a message or whatever, and I know the audience, let's say it's 125 people, and I know that they're already active because their marketing score is 8.5 and above, and then I know 45% of those people opened the email, went to the site, looked at all these things. Now you can take an enablement component of that to have your BDC to say, hey, these are very qualified shoppers that A, are looking at this subset, and B, they're really active. And then you can have an enablement to say, hey, Lana, thank you for doing business in the past. Of your car is coming up for equity and blah, blah, blah. It requires a little bit more salesmanship to like call someone cold to say, oh,
Yeah.
ironically, I just got your email and I'm actually on your.
Yeah.
So there's it's like a different kind of realm. And one of the things that like Aaron said on Brian's podcast was like the data ups, right? You have the reactive CRM kind of lead, the walk-in up, and now there's a whole different level of data ups that you could say this person's pretty dang close to converting,
Yeah, and also I think we're seeing overall, at least like the industry, both in and out of automotive, we're seeing that people are converting less on websites, meaning the benchmark is just lower because there's more research happening, and then they'll either call, text, like there's not the same website form conversion rate that there was. So having the ability to create these enablement and data ups so that you could say, okay, this person's really close, and also being able to do that because you've connected your CRM data and you can now de-anonymize some of those shoppers, super powerful. I mean, I would love to have that ability for all the dealers that love to hear from us.
Yeah.
So that I think that's a really good point, and I think in general, like I'd love to hear what. Like, do you feel like dealers are ready for this? What are your conversations like with dealers that are interested in leveraging their data more, or like building up their team and figuring out a way to train them to have those conversations? Like you mentioned, you have to be a bit savvy. Like you can't pick up the phone and say, hey, thanks for doing business with us. I realize that you're up on our website looking at X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
Are you hearing any kind of feedback around that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's 2 parts to it. One is like the education of giving marketers, or in my opinion, I think as these are becoming more common in auto, that you may have a new person in the dealership world that is more of like a data analyst, because you now have more access to data, whereas before on the CRM side, it's it's a little bit clunky, and what can you do with the CRM stuff? You then got to take the list and send it, and this is where the quote like data analyst type level role is really powerful. And there's some groups that do a really good job. We were just at a 20 group in Boston last week talking. Thank you, David Kane and NIF for having us out. We had a great time, and we had a great conversation with them in terms of like how are you doing this? And there's also still a lot of trepidation of like what is tangible, what is real, how do you cut through the noise of like, as us on our side, because we eat, sleep, and drink CDPs and all the stuff, to be like, oh yeah, just put it in your store and use it. But the tactical element on it is also as powerful for the education to say, how are we going to do this? I was talking with a dealer last week where he built a micro audience for an electric car, as we were talking about earlier, and he was just playing around with it, and he built a micro audience for 36 people, and of the message that he sent to those 36 people, he sold 2 cars.
Yeah, Can you imagine just doing that over and over again with your
Right.
your data?
Yeah. So
And think about the cost. Like think about the cost that you put into dig ad and the cost that you can put into leveraging your first party data like this. And I mean, it just can be so much more efficient.
yeah.
And also, just to your point, back to your point about like training up and figuring out those scripts for the dealers listening. I mean, this is what ChatGPT is for. This is what generative AI is for. I mean, I would say always edit it, look it over, but like that can be super helpful. AI generated content.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of stuff, whether it's SMS and using GPT responses, and then when they submit, which is we don't no spoiler alerts up until
Definitely no spoiler alerts.
But,
We'll have to have you jump out of a plane right now.
yeah, I'll go jump out right now. But no, I think there's a lot of stuff, and I think one of the other really cool things is like the intelligence around the system is as important as like the lists and stuff themselves, because once you actually go in and set, like you can build a framework to say, if a person falls into this audience, then drip this message. Which is really cool because you basically set the framework to say like, if missed appointment but active on the website, send this. If coming, it's like the IFTT, if this then that. That is really, really cool and powerful. But also it takes time to like sit down and our CSMs that we have at Fullpath, do this all day long, and we do internal training. So it's really cool. It's really powerful to be more specific to users instead of like you were talking about form fills earlier. Is if I'm looking for a car and I submit a lead for a form, what I get back from my response is vastly different than what I actually sent in to the consumer. So it's like this smart way of communicating with consumers to get them to buy, and then also once you get them interested, how do you then move them along as well?
Yeah, and this is like, we can have a whole nother conversation on this, but this does remind
me a few bottles of wine.
And a few bottles of wine. Yeah, I haven't even had my sip. Where's your coffee? I'm drinking here alone. It's unbelievable.
I already had like 2 or 3 today. I got to, I got to keep my hands steady for typing.
Oh, all right. Well, for those of you who are new here, it is after 8 p.m. here in Tel Aviv, so no excuses. But what I was going to say is like one of my favorite topics, and we really should do maybe an episode on this, but like the mix of AI and human, and finding the perfect balance. And so creating a micro audience like that is granular, it works, that it's gonna like hit home, the message is gonna hit home, but it's set up to automate so that like anyone in the future also falls into it. It's just a great way to be able to leverage AI and leverage some kind of automation, but also have your human touch, have the like dealership element, create that message you want for those 36 people, and then trickle out whoever is relevant. So, I mean, there's a lot of examples of how you can mix that. And I think you talked about trepidation and hesitation when it comes to these systems. I think like thinking about it like that is such a easier way to kind of adopt it, because you're influencing the AI. You're basically teaching it in a way that the dealer can maybe feel more comfortable. Yeah. So good example. And we should, we'll do like we'll drop some examples of the best mix of human and AI, because it's one of my favorite topics. Sweet. So any spoilers you can share with us here before we get you onto your next cup of coffee and call it a night.
It's dangerous to get me on a call because
that's true.
I
might regret this later.
No. I'll keep it outside
kosher?
of the classified. I'll keep it kosher. Yeah, exactly.
Keep it kosher.
No, we have a lot of stuff. We have Aaron will be at. You guys should listen to his podcast that just dropped last week, I believe, with Brian. So we have a team going to MRC. For anyone going to Digital Dealer, we will not have a booth there, but we might have a few people walking around. So make sure you guys hit us up. And then any of the 20 group stuff, we've been going to a lot of 20 groups, which are awesome. We had
drop a comment or a like. We'd love to be there.
Yeah. Last time, Mike
will take you to Mike will take you out for a concert.
Yeah.
If you
Last week, I mean, we're setting the bar. Last week when we were in Boston, we found out that Pearl Jam was playing at Fenway, so we bought the 20 group and we all went and had a great time and saw Eddie Vedder. at
There you
Fenway.
go.
It was incredible.
That's awesome. Yeah. All right. So, I mean, maybe I'll just, I would love to go to a concert. I'll fly in.
Come on in. We'll have
Sounds
you as the
great.
speaker at the 20 group. I'm sure you do an excellent job.
I would love to. All of us at Fullpath, we have a few really, really good speakers and really educational stuff that we can be teaching. So we would love to be at 20 groups, and we'd love to see you guys at the conferences, obviously also NADA in 2025. So we're looking forward. Cheers.
Cool. Cheers, my virtual glass.
See you next time.
See ya.
It's 5 o'clock somewhere. Bye.
Bye.